Hi guys, it's Kamil here. I'm back. I wasn't posting anything for the last 2 weeks. I was extremely busy, but from today it should be much better and I should be more of a regular. I'm coming to you guys with The Remains of a Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. Kazuo Ishiguro is Japanese-born British novelist that is nowadays regarded as one of the most important English writers. He has published 6 books so far. Probably the one that is most well known is Never Let Me Go, because of the movie that was released a couple of years ago with Keira Knightley and Carey Mulligan. However, the Remains of a Days is regarded his masterpiece. It was published in 1989 and was awarded Booker Prize the same year. The plot is told in a manner of stream of consciousness by Mr. Stevens, that is a butler at Darlington Hall in 1950s. So this book is a quest story. Mr. Stevens, that is our narrator, takes on a journey to meet Miss Kenton, former housekeeper at Darlington Hall, because he received a letter from her. Mr. Stevens, during this trip, meets all sorts of people, and he rethinks his life. He goes back to the pivotal moments of his life and thinks, what if I have done that? What if I have acted differently? This trip changes Mr. Stevens. He comes to realization that his life, but that later on. Mr. Stevens' whole life is affected by the idea of becoming great butler, and he defines great butler by 2 aspects. Great butler is a man that provides services to the best of his abilities. And the core definition of becoming a great butler is serving a man, a great man, that is having a great impact on the whole society. So Mr. Stevens is providing services to Lord Darlington, the man that is strongly involved in the British policy in the late 30s. Unfortunately, Lord Darlington is a Nazi sympathizer. He's a man that is becoming a pawn in Hitler propaganda hands. He's not able to see what kind of place Europe is becoming, and he's short-sighted. He doesn't really understand what's going on in Germany and what Hitler is aiming for. To understand what kind of place Europe was back then, we have to go a few years back. In 1918, the First World War ended and the Treaty of Versailles was signed. Treaty of Versailles determined that Germany was single-handedly responsible for initiating the war, and the main terms and conditions were Germany lost substantial part of its territory, all overseas areas and some major industrial areas in Europe, like Alsace and Lorraine that went back to France. Rhineland was demilitarized. Saarland was administered by France. It was all done in order to protect French territory from another aggression from Germany. German army was reduced to 100,000 men, and they were also forbidden to use conscription to fulfill its ranks, and there were also bans imposed on heavy artillery and all the military production. So Lord Darlington believes that conditions and terms of the Treaty of Versailles were too harsh, that it knocked down Germany that was already laying on the floor, and he thinks it was unfair. Hitler in the 30s starts to regain his power, starts to build up Germany military power. He goes through every term and condition in the Treaty of Versailles and breaks it, first in regards with the army, then in regards with territory. First Anschluss of Austria, then partition of Czechoslovakia. And in order to avoid any conflict, Europe's main policy back then, especially British main policy back then, was the policy of appeasement, which means to compromise everything in order to stay away from the conflict with Germany. Lord Darlington is a main figure in the appeasement policy of Great Britain back then, and this is the man Mr. Stevens is providing his services to. Lord Darlington goes so far that he's ready to make redundant 2 of his maids just because they are Jewish, in order to make his German visitors happy. That was disgusting when I read that, and this kind of moments show the character of Mr. Stevens in the brightest light. I would go that far to even say that he lacks any character. character. He's basically faithful to this idea of becoming great butler and providing great services, that he doesn't question anything that his employer does. When he is being asked what he thinks about it by Lord Darlington's nephews, he would say that he's not in position to question that. But all this explanation, they have only one goal. Stevens defines his own greatest by the great men he's providing his services to. Mr. Stevens has to defend him in order to protect his own vision of himself. This book is also a love story. Miss Kenton, she was the only one that was able to push him. And when he thinks about his life and these pivotal moments during which he could have taken different paths and made different decisions, he's always thinking in relation with Miss Kenton. They were together for 20 years. I mean, it was work relationship, but this was the only person that he kind of thought as a family, the only one that could provide love to him. So he analyzed his life in relation with her, and he comes to terms that he didn't really have his own life. He didn't take any action. She was pushing him, but he decided to close himself in this box of professionalism. And at the end of the book, he comes to the sad realization that he didn't really live his life. So Ishiguro novel is a portrait of a man that is broken by his life's decision and his life choices. So as you probably have noticed, I really felt deeply about this book and I really loved it. The writing that I haven't said anything about yet is absolutely beautiful. English language in the most beautiful form. Strongly recommended. Bye bye, take care.